It's the Common Sense Road Trip. Buckle up, turn up the volume, and get ready to get a move on. Let's get this journey on the road. All right, well, welcome to the Common Sense Road Trip. I'm here with Nick, and we're going on our annual kayak trip.
Yeah.
First one of the year. School's just wrapped up, and so we're taking our happy butts all the way out here to the river.
Feeling good.
And we're excited. It's going to be a good day. So back to what we talked about the last time that we did the solo podcast is that we take this podcast and we take the theme of common sense and we make that the focal point of what we talk about. Well, prior to recording, Nick and I were having a conversation about kind of the common sense that's been eluding many of those in the media and in positions of power. And I think a lot of it comes down to use your common sense and know that people don't always listen to everything you say, and we're not easy to be lied to anymore. In the information age, So what we were just talking about beforehand, Nick, as we had to let everybody know, we talked a little bit about a podcast I was listening to with I think they're called the Nelk Boys. Good. And just keeps it. And the podcast had anchor for, and I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to get name dropped over here, but they had an anchor from an old news station there who's no longer employed, and he was on talking about the economy, and he was telling to the podcasting hosts that the economy is actually really good right now, and the people are making more money than ever, and that all the signs point to good things.
Sure, we're making more money, but now it comes to inflation. Right.
Well, exactly. And that's what they were like. They said, listen here, man, like you're making or have made millions of dollars a year.
Yeah.
And I'm sure for you, it's fine. Yeah. The cost of things go up a little bit, woohoo.
But you don't feel the hit.
No. But the rest of us, and here's the thing, we're not exactly in the impoverished side of things. We're doing pretty well on our side. But we have definitely felt the tightening of the purse strings.
Oh, yes.
Definitely. So, like, this is what we were getting into, is how can you sit there and just bald-faced lie to people and tell them what they're experiencing isn't real? I don't get it. Dude, I don't get it.
It's you probably don't remember this. Do you remember John L. Smith, Coach the Razorbacks?
Yeah.
So it kind of reminds me of that press conference John L. Smith had when the Hogs were just in the tank. They were doing awful. And he gets up and he's just like, smile. Everybody just smile. And he's just like trying to get everybody to like put on a fake smile and be happy when everything is complete poop.
Right. It's gone to crap. Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's at least in his defense, it's a football game, and like it does have its ups and downs.
Yeah, sure.
And it affects a group of people, but the economy, the purse strings, the money, the financial strife that all of us are feeling, man, it affects millions of people.
Yeah.
You remember that whole thing years ago, the Occupy Wall Street, we are the 99%. Remember that?
Uh-huh.
I don't quite know what the percentage of those who have the vast majority of the wealth of the United States is, but I'm sure it's in the single digits. And I'm sure for those people, everything's fine. You're just living life like normal.
Yeah, they're just coasting along.
What's like, all right, did you see the other day there's a report that came out, and I think it was a national report. I don't know who released it. It may have been, I read it on USA.org. So, but said that to live comfortably, and they had a two-parent household with 2 children, what their income they had to have. Did you see what Arkansas's was?
What?
It's like 180,000 or 190,000.
Well, my wife, we're going to say, kid, we're under that. So there you go. That tells.
Well, and they said that's to live comfortably. That's like having, you can put your hands on $1,000 if necessary and things like that. And that's like, for us in particular, we've got a lot of our wealth is tied up in assets, not necessarily liquid assets. It's tied up in properties or stocks or different things like that. And the stocks, while they're somewhat liquid, we would have to, if something crazy happened, we would have to kind of get rid of some stuff. And I understand everybody has to do that, but we don't have the ability to just put our hands on 10 grand right there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're calling as the like to live comfortably.
And I think some things that need to be figured into that is today's millennial generation, we are now starting life with greater debt than generations in the past.
True.
And this is one of the discussion my grandfather and I just had. Is he said, he says, turn out for him, out of college, he had no debt. And so he said, and now he's doing very well for himself.
Right.
But, he said, I feel for your generation, because he said, all of his grandkids, he looks at them, and we're all starting out with a great amount of debt.
Yeah.
And he said that on top of the inflation, and on top of everything else, he said, he can imagine that financial pressure.
Right.
And, but here's what I told him. I said, that's the number one reason why, in my life, especially my wife and I, we do not link our happiness to financial gains.
Yeah.
Like, we do what we can. We try to be smart with it. But our happiness is tied to non-financial. Like, that's where we bank all of our chips on, and happiness, all that is definitely not financial.
Right.
Because, we have debts and we're paying them off, and hopefully by the time we retirement age, we'll have all those paid off. But, that's just kind of the way of life, it seems like now.
Well, and the American dream used to be to create something for yourself and your descendants, right?
Yeah.
But now we're not really able to do that as much. And even our parents they're able to give us stuff. Don't get me wrong. And when they pass along, or pass on to the great wheel in the sky or whatever, there was that old joke, the giant spaghetti monster in the sky. Oh my God. What? It's hard. Squirrel. When they move on and pass on, we'll have some stuff. And the crazy thing about like me, and this is just a personal note, is I'm an only child, and we've got several hundred acres, or maybe 100. I don't remember. We've got a lot of acreage as a family unit between my dad and all his siblings down in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And that acreage, all of my cousins are siblings, so they each have one or two brothers or sisters, right? So like my aunt has 4 kids, my other uncle has 2, my closest cousins are 2, so they're going to be dividing that land up between each of them.
Right. Right.
And that's, I get to maintain the majority share at that point because of it coming down to me.
Right.
Well, that's not a big thing. I'm thinking about that is, will I have the ability to pass down something like that to my children? Because that's what I want to do.
Yes.
We live on some land right now, but we don't have just vast amounts of acreage anywhere.
Right.
And so that being said, it's like our mentality has shifted as a culture into no longer passing it forward. It's either paying it to yourself or paying it backwards.
Yep. Yep.
I heard the other day there's a cultural thing, and some of it is, I'm not gonna play this card because I don't like to, but some of it comes down to cultural differences, racial differences, etc. And certain cultures in our society kind of feel like and we do too. Let me get that right. But like if they make it big, they owe all of that and the majority of their share to their parents, who, yes, they raised them, but didn't necessarily give that to them,
Mm-hmm.
And so then after they've given all it back to their parents, they have nothing to give to their community. They have nothing to give to their children. And so I think the cultural mindset, whether this is through some giant conglomeration or cabal of power, or just through coincidence and time, has changed. And I don't necessarily think for the better.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yep. I 100% agree.
And so when it comes to common sense here in this scenario, I think those in power lack common sense enough to govern the rest of us in many scenarios. Because think about this. All right, so here's the thing. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and we both listen to the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yes.
And dude, I love Joe Rogan, like one of my favorite podcasters. He's hilarious.
I'm really catching on to him now too. I've been listening to his episodes, and I'm like, man, this guy makes a lot of sense.
He's got some weird zany stuff going on.
Yes,
And I
but
don't agree with everything he says.
he does use a lot of common sense though. he's like I said, I like that about him. Like he's very just honest.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I like it.
Well, it's like the other day, right? So I can go to subject 65 over here. Topic number 4, section B. Bill Maher, right, was on, of all places, Fox News.
Interesting.
All right. Bill Maher is a classic liberal, like hates Fox. But even they brought him on, and I think they kind of came to this agreement that, common sense is kind of leaving a lot of those in power on the left and the right.
Yes, it is. Both sides.
Oh, I got a new gas station there. Huh. I know they sold out.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. We got squirreled over here.
We literally got squirreled.
We would show you, but the camera's mounted to the windshield here.
Oh, they sold out?
Yeah, they sold out to whatever. I guess Phillips 66, what it looks like.
Okay.
Interesting. Anyway, that is a Joe Rogan podcast right there.
Yeah.
He just goes off on random tangents every now and then. Anyway, and even they were like, Bill Maher, who, again, classic liberal, doesn't agree with Republicans by any means, or conservatives. It's like, some of the stuff that we're doing is going well outside of the bounds of common sense.
Yeah.
And so he had talking about this, he had a Democratic strategist, and I do not remember the guy's name. I know he's in that movie Old School with Will Ferrell, and he's bald-headed and wears glasses. He's older.
Okay, I'm matching a face. Yeah.
And I'll Google him at some point. But he was on there saying the Americans are kind of stupid for thinking that the economy's bad. Everything's doing great by all metrics. And I'm like, buddy, you're missing the point. Yeah. It's not messaging anymore. It's what people feel.
Yeah.
And I can't go to the grocery store for less than $120.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where it gets me. I'm like, every single time I see my grocery bill, I'm kind of like looking at pit my stomach. Like, is this really where it's at? Like, I mean, my gosh, I'm trying to be, really frugal here, and it's still going higher. And I'm like, my gosh.
Yeah, you pick the lesser options, and like for myself, my wife is into the organic, healthy, like getting rid of all pesticides, hormones, and I'm with her on that because I think our food is a huge problem.
Yes, it is.
Society
Most definitely is.
But like, dude, I bet we spend $160 on groceries a week.
Yeah.
Between Costco and Kroger.
Yep.
And that doesn't even include gas. That doesn't include any eating out. If we do that, which we're really trying not to, but sometimes it's just
we've been failing that battle.
It's like it's easier, dude.
Yeah, it's a lot easier.
And we're remodeling our home and everything, so it's just like time. Where did it go? Yeah. But that's the whole thing, is that the common sense of today is telling us that actually the economy is maybe looking fantastic on paper. And I'll give some credit that businesses may be making more money.
Right.
But to the average man, an average woman, an average family, it ain't doing too hot. And it makes me think back to, and I don't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're good.
So it makes me think back to, all right, so did you see the Met Gala that came out? The whole controversy about cancel the celebrities or whatever?
I did not see that.
Okay, so this is kind of cool. So basically, at the Met Gala, people are all dressed up in these really fancy dresses, and they're calling it the Hunger Games because it looks like the capital city from the Hunger Games. So that's
ironic.
All right. So that's one just iota of getting a bad press. While there, somebody said, and I don't know the context behind it, but somebody said, "Let them eat cake," talking about the people who aren't at the Met Gala. Which, if you know anything about history, it was Marie Antoinette, which eventually caused her to get her head cut off.
Yep.
So, I'm just finding out that, a lot of people in that upper echelon of our classes,
completely ignorant to it.
They're
absolutely ignorant to it. Yeah.
And so the common sense would be, look at those around you. I know we're in our echo chambers now, but it ain't that hard to see.
And I think that is a huge point right there, is that some of those at the top that have been born at the top never know anything different. They are completely ignorant to it. They don't see that struggle. They don't understand that struggle.
Yeah.
And you can't really blame them for that, because they don't know any better.
But those that have been and found their way out and then forget what it's like. Here's the thing. I don't want to stigmatize somebody for success, because you have been successful. You deserve.
Yeah, you deserve that.
But the change or the trend is that you may deserve that success, but you cannot forget that those around you don't have that. And that doesn't mean you take care of them.
Right.
But the common sense would say, don't, crap on the little guy,
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we outnumber them.
The little guy supports the big guy. So, without the little guy, big guy, there is no big guy. And so, I don't know. There's also, this is the other discussion my grandpa and I had the other day, was that gap between the top and bottom, and how that gap is just widening out. And there's less in between and more just either bottom or top.
Yeah.
And it's just, that to him, he said at his old age in his 80s, to him, and he's doing pretty well for himself, but to him, that's concerning for the future.
Yeah.
He said the fact that that's only continuing to widen, he said there is going to become complete ignorance between both sides of how to deal with the other. And he's afraid of where that will lead.
I'll tell you right where it leads to a Marxism.
Yeah.
Because it leads to the oppressor versus the oppressed.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, we've got a Stalin-esque government. I'm not saying that can happen here easily, but
could it not? I mean, and that's what's scary is could it not?
You think about that, but think about COVID.
Yeah.
We would have never thought that you could take our rights away over a sickness that you just cough.
Exactly.
And most of you don't even die.
Exactly.
Most of you don't end up in the hospital. And here we are. They were able to take away so many rights, pen us in our homes, shut down our businesses, destroy our education system, destroy small businesses.
We are still suffering with the education system. That still will for a long time.
And here's the thing, man. That ain't going to change.
Yeah.
It's just not going to change.
That was a little test sample.
Yeah.
That was a test sample, and now they see what they can do and what can be done. And I think, it's got them biting at the bit. Yeah, they're just, for some of the leaders, they're biting the bit about it.
Well, once you relinquish your freedom for security, do you really deserve that freedom anymore? Because you're not getting it back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think about the Patriot Act after 9/11. Right now, we all wanted security after that.
Right.
Most people in our generation remember this.
Yes.
We were little, but we still remember it. But I remember I used to be able to get on the plane. Mom and Dad could come with me. They'd sit up there right there, hop on the plane, and then they'd walk off.
Yep.
Nowadays,
they're absolutely not. Yeah, I can't do that anymore.
Nope. And then on that same note, think about all the transportation security system changes that have come. Patriot Act. They can spy on our cell phones.
Yep.
Okay. Under Obama, they can drone American citizens, drone strike and kill them.
Yep.
Without due process.
Yep.
All right. And I mean, here's the thing. I'm not the biggest fan of our former president. I'll be the first to tell you that.
Right.
But what they're doing to him right now is proof that the justice system is a weaponized tool of whoever is in power.
Your point made. Yes.
I mean, he's sitting in trial right now.
Yeah.
And he's been in trial after trial after trial. FBI's been after him. It's nuts. And imagine if they do that. Another example of people losing common sense and understanding that power begets power, and then the only thing that they're afraid of losing is their power. RFK Jr. can't even get Secret Service security detail.
Yeah.
He's the third runner for president right now.
Yeah.
They don't want him up there. And I understand he's a former Democrat, but I think he's the first presidential candidate in history to not receive
a security detail.
A security detail.
Yeah.
It's insane. Not to mention, his uncle and his father were both assassinated.
That just doesn't make sense.
It's like,
you
what?
think they put a little extra caution in that?
Yeah. It's nuts, dude.
It is.
Nuts. Well, that's the whole point, is that common sense today seems to be lacking.
Fleeting.
Yeah, it's not staying around. And I think the common sense point from today's conversation is that it's common sense to realize that your experience is not the same as everybody else's, and we seem to have forgotten that.
Yeah.
We've become the most connected generation in history, with the ability to reach those across the country, across the world in a matter of seconds. And yet somehow we are blind or ignorant to the experiences of those around us. And I think as you get more wealth, more power, you become blind to that as well. And I'm not saying that those that are impoverished are not blind to the plight that is the wealth. But I'll put it this way. I can wipe my tears with my millions of dollars. But the thing is, common sense is something that we do not necessarily put value on anymore, and it's led to many problems.
And that's the one thing I do feel in the future we could improve.
Yeah.
I know, I guess this goes back to our past podcast here, it starts with in the home.
Yep.
and a strong family dynamic in that home with mom and dad.
Yep.
And yeah, I know my wife and I, with our son and our soon-to-be born child, we want him to think for himself.
Yep.
Want him to be able to deliberate, to be able to, and we're constantly pushing that on him to, a little bit of the independence. Like, you can decide this. You don't have to have somebody else tell you what this is. You decide.
Yep.
And I want my son to have that, to use his common sense, to be able to make decisions. And I feel like that's something we can really need to install into our future kids and our future generations, is that ability to think for themselves. Because I feel that is a dangerous line that we're pushing of, come on, we're both teachers. We see it every day. We constantly see these kids that they seem to lost that ability to think for themselves, and they need somebody to make the decisions for them. And that is, to me, terrifying.
Not just that, but the ability to rationalize and to be for more than just immediate, not even instant, like immediate, within milliseconds of gratification.
It's really scary.
I see that a lot.
It's really scary.
It's intimidating. It bothers me. I don't know what we can do to fix it, other than, like you said, start in the home. But first off, we got to make the home important. And now
we've got to make the home important.
It's gone. The nuclear family. You know how many children are born outside of wedlock now? And here's the thing, that happens. I do not want to disparage single parents, because it happens.
There's situations beyond our control signs, but
we have made it.
The ideals of that nuclear family is dissolving, though, in society, and that's scaring me.
Well, and here's the thing. I think everybody that has common sense understands that is the building block of a society.
Absolutely.
Not everybody has to do that.
Absolutely.
Right? But if you have forgotten what the importance is of a nuclear family, then you've kind of lost some of it. And here's the thing. Divorce happens. Infidelity happens.
Yes.
Single parenthood happens.
Yes. We've all experienced in our families. Like, that happens.
And we don't want to disparage anybody for that. But it's, at the same time, we cannot disacknowledge that the fact of two-parent homes with both parents present, at least some way active in their child's life,
yes,
is, if you look at that, the success ratio compared to those who do not is not exactly uncorrelated. There is a correlation between nuclear families that are existing together in the same household. They go through strife, but the family doesn't break up, and those who don't.
And that family together, that reels that resilience.
Yeah.
That resilience. And not only that resilience, but undertone of all those morals, values, like just common sense. All of that is the undertone of that nuclear family. And with the nuclear family disappearing and that value disappearing, that to me compounds all the other issues. Yeah. That is a terrifying thing.
It used to be back in the day, adults didn't share their problems with their kids.
Yeah.
And now the kids are privy to every adult problem before they are, and it's leading to problems that they can't process as a child.
Yep.
And that leads to more issues down the road.
Yep.
I just think, I don't know how to express it, because I don't want to, irritate anybody, but at the same time, common sense would dictate that we are designed to be in family units for a reason. And we have been in family units for the entirety of our history. Yes. Now, if you want to go back to pre-human civilization, hunter-gatherer societies, apes, etc., even apes operate in a society.
It's a family unit.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And I understand that there's usually one male and then a lot of females, and for whatever reason that works, and that has worked for the people of power in our history.
Yes.
You think about the harem or whatever, and the concubines in the Asian societies, whatever you want to call it. Point is that the family unit for right now has been the core of our society, and our society is, shocker, is beginning to deteriorate without that being the core push. Because the percentage of people not in wedlock that have children is exceedingly high.
It is very high.
And I think in certain cultures it's even higher.
Yeah.
And I think common sense here says that there's a problem. Maybe we should look at what the cause is. And everybody wants to blame society as the whole, but if we ever looked at the home, the broken homes that people come from?
Well, let me ask you this. Could you imagine where you'd be today without the guidance of your parents in a structured deal?
No.
where you would end up. To me,
No. I mean,
would,
actually, I can
yeah,
because I was adopted.
yep,
And
Yep.
I have seen, they don't know I exist. Well,
Right.
one of them for sure does because she gave birth to me.
right.
But the rest of them don't know I exist. And I know who they are, but I have stayed under the radar for an exact reason. And I've seen the way that they've lived. I do not wish that upon myself.
Yes.
And I believe that a lot of my issues are genetic, but the way that I handled them have been taught to me by my
I've been
parents.
taught to my parents, yes, because a lot of it is learned
Yeah.
behavior, learned behavior. And because genetics only go so far.
Yeah.
And
You as a biologist should know
yes,
about this.
genetics only go so far, but we look at it in science of the 90% of your personality, 10% of it may be hormonal genetic.
Yeah.
90% of it is learned from those who teach you. And
Right.
and so when kids completely lose that in the home, there is nothing to guide them, and they make mistake after mistake after
Yeah.
mistake, and they just get deeper and deeper down that hole. And that, to me, that as an educator, that's something that is very scary. Is you have all these kids from broken homes that have
Right.
no guidance, and the parents have basically practically given up.
Yep.
And now there is absolutely zero guidance. The only guidance they receive is from their teachers at school, but even then they're only listening half the time. And so it's hard. It's really hard, and you feel for those kids because let's be honest, as a young, we all remember as young juveniles, we don't make the best decisions. We need that guidance, and for some kids, they just have almost complete lack of it at home.
Well, the phrase came out that it takes a village to raise a child,
Yeah.
and I think that's true. But what that doesn't acknowledge, and people forget, is that child has to come from something safe.
Yeah.
Has to come from something. Because I learned lessons from coaches, from teachers, from pastors, from other adults, family, friends, aunts and uncles.
It's an accumulative.
Yeah, but those do not supplant, nor do they minimize the lessons I've learned from my
Your
parents.
parents. That's number one. Yep.
And that's natural. That's biology.
Yeah, that's pure biology.
Because
psychology.
nurturing starts in the home at a young age. And there are thousands of studies that show that the first face the child comes to familiarize himself with is his mother and father.
Yep.
Or her mother and father. And at that point, that becomes a safe space. And so when you take away the safe space, if the home is broken or the home is chaotic, then it leads to more. And I'm not saying people can't surpass it and become better, but it leads to issues physically, mentally, psychologically, academically down the road.
Yep.
There are those that are better than that and have come out of that and have become super successful and have gone on to live perfect lives or raise their own family in a way that breaks that generational curse,
Yeah.
Like my mom. I love my grandparents. God rest their souls, they're both passed on. But she had a really difficult time growing up. And so my dad had a little bit better of a time, but he lost his mom early and his dad early. Both of his parents died quite young in his life. Now he was the last child, so they were aged by them. But my mom refused to be the way that she grew up. And the flip side of that is now she's a clean freak because she grew up in filth and squalor. And she doesn't want to do that.
Yep.
But she's a proof that got out of that generational curse of not just poverty, and to say that our society doesn't reward the nuclear family anymore. You get a tax break. Governmental institutions are now taking these incentives, and they're taking them away from nuclear families and providing them to lifestyles, California. You're homeless.
Yep.
You get taken care of. You get drugs for free.
Yep. Why go back? Yeah, there's no incentive to go back. I mean, it's just, and I watched a whole documentary on that recently, and as I was watching it, I looked at my wife and I looked at her. I was like, well, shoot, I might as well go homeless and live in California, because they get practically catered to.
I'd make more money there than I do as a teacher here. So I can go there for a few years and then come back with a money.
Yes, I mean, my gosh, it's like Mexico and U.S. So it's just like, man, I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's asinine.
It is completely ridiculous, and I'm like, there is absolutely zero incentive for any of these people to try to better change themselves.
And that's what like we want people to get out of that. We want to provide incentives, and I don't know that there is a common sense solution to it. I think there are incentives that we can provide for situations, but we have to find ways to better promote. Like, okay, dude, yeah, I'm driving straight. Just cut me off with your big old trailer, dummy. Like Italy is beginning to provide incentives for natural-born Italian citizens to have children.
Yep.
By providing them payments for those children. Finland does the same thing.
That's fantastic.
That's a socialist concept, so we can't really do that here.
Yeah.
But my point is that their birth rate, for one, and their natural-born citizens is starting to rise. Secondly, their married rate is beginning to rise. And thirdly, their home ownership is beginning to rise. Now, here's what the trade-off, at least in Italy. There's not a lot of jobs available. All the jobs are going to older people.
Yeah, okay.
Spain, same way.
Yes.
But we have to provide incentives for families now because there's nothing else that's going to keep a society in structure. You lose your familial unit, and we're going to be in Fahrenheit 451, or we're going to be in George Orwellian novel.
Yep.
And it's just, it doesn't work. Big brother's over there controlling us.
Oh, man. Well, that's why I get it gets that idea of you see those actions in California.
Yep.
And you see it's like, okay, our leaders, do they love the fact that the public being 100% dependent on them feed from their paw? And I'm just like,
at least the English had a monarchy to do that for them.
Yeah.
We're electing these people to do that crap.
Yeah.
Well, I saw it was Michael Douglas, all right, famous actor, was on a video, and it was on TikTok of all places, and it talked about there's a Venn diagram, and one circle was the serving the peoples that they represent, and it was talking about politicians serving the people they represent, and the other getting reelected. And you would think the Venn diagram would show that the two circles would be combined. They get reelected when they represent and serve the people. No, there was actually a negative correlation between serving the people's will and doing and getting reelected, meaning that if the politician did the opposite of what the people wanted, they were more likely to get elected according to the statistic. And I think it's because corporate lobbying and donations and things of that sort to campaigns and whatever they did. And so what's good for the society, what's good for the people they're serving, does not get them reelected.
Right.
What gets them reelected is corporate donations.
Yep.
To make people think that they're doing things right.
Yep.
It's a complete total. All right, here's a great example, and I hate to take over the conversation.
No, go for it.
Sarah Sanders.
I was going to say, I knew you were going to say it because, I think if you talk, there's a common theme among educators.
Yes.
Is they're like, yes, on the front end, and then when everything got acted out, they're like, did we plan this out? Like, did we even think about this? Like, was it just...
I was like, oh my gosh. It's just like, and the things that we're doing, like, we're going to get a tax break for those who are such and such, and we're going to give, we're going to cut the income tax.
Yeah.
Sure, if you're in the top 1%.
Yeah.
We still have to pay income tax. We got now my wife and her job, she gets half of her paycheck comes from bonuses that she gets for work and hours. It's a kind of good. It's a weird setup, but it works.
I was gonna say it works.
So it helped us on a small percentage. I still pay income tax. It's crazy. And then this whole Learns Act thing.
Okay. Don't you start,
dude. Let's one up this. Talking about common sense here. One up this.
Oh boy.
Solution tree.
Oh.
PLC.
Boy.
Did you see the news that came out about that?
No, I did see that they were getting audited.
Okay, the audit finished.
Mm-hmm.
They
what was the result?
No correlation between their PLC process and improved academic achievement whatsoever.
Surprise.
We've actually dropped down.
Surprise.
Since they started that.
Yes, a boy. Oh, man.
And then we're starting to come back up.
Okay, so a slight rebound.
But there was not any, there was a negligible, we paid them to get $150 million. $150, and they want more. They want like $19 million, and it would end up being like $119 million over 7 years more.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Educators say no. Solution tree needs to go.
Yeah.
Because here's why. Common sense. Look at what the data shows. It doesn't freaking work.
Nope. And I tell you now, 99% of educators you talk to in Arkansas will tell you the exact same
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. That PLC
We've
process
seen
is crap.
We've seen it, and it does not work.
Crap. It's absolute crap.
Yep.
It makes sense on paper, but it doesn't work because you're forcing people to do something they already do, A, or B, they're not gonna do because they don't have the resources to do
They
it.
don't have the resources to even do it. Yeah, and that is. Yeah. Were you there at the conference we went with several of the teachers we teach with, that we were sitting there just, it was laughable.
Oh, a couple years ago?
Yeah, we went to the Solution Tree conference in Little Rock.
Yeah.
And it was laughable. Like, it was, we were sitting there and they all these people, they got paid the big bucks to go up there and talk. It was absolutely evidently clear that either they were being told what to say or didn't know what they were talking about.
Yep.
And it was very clear. And it was laughable. Like, and so I remember I was sitting next to several guys and we were just kind of under our breath, like joking at it, because it was just so clearly ignorant and unexperienced and just nothing that made sense in an educational classroom. And it was just awful.
Well, this is not an admission of guilt, but I left.
Yeah. No, you should not feel guilt.
I didn't actually leave. I didn't actually leave.
Well, but who, like, it was a waste of time. An absolute waste of time.
All right.
And all it was a direct IV getting that millions of dollars pumped right to the 1% right there that were in control of it. And it was just, and I was just like, wow, what a classic example.
Yeah, it's a rack. It's a scam.
Yeah.
And here's the thing.
Feed just drained from the educational system.
Almost all educational systems right now.
Yep.
All curriculums, all testing.
Yep.
Not all. The stuff that I've seen is a scam, because here's the thing. We are going to come up with a great new test that's going to measure your students' achievement. Oh, your students failed the test? Oh, we have a curriculum that'll help them pass that test.
Yep.
Oh, really? Do you? Do you now?
Yeah.
Okay. Dude, I get fired up when it comes to this because it is a waste of money. I mean, holy crap. We can't afford to pay for new football equipment or band equipment, or shoot, I don't even have a curriculum. Like, I am having to discover this on my own because we can't afford to pay for our curriculum. Right?
Yeah.
So that being said, it's freaking nuts that we're spending millions. Oh, there's going to be a wreck right there. Hundreds of millions of dollars on things that do not work. And they sit there and they lie to us and say, yes, they do work. No,
they don't. Don't feed that to me. Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Boy, there was something happened here.
Big old wreck going that way. All right. Well, folks, there's a big wreck, so we're going to try to get around this.
Try to get around.
All right, guys, we're back. Sorry it took us a minute. We had to get around some traffic. It was a pretty nasty wreck up over here, which has now since cleared up.
Yeah.
But we're good. Everybody's safe. So what we're talking about is a solution tree and how we spent all this money. And Nick had just mentioned how he had been at a conference in Little Rock with them, and it was a waste of time. So, and adding to that, I went to one in Atlanta. Not Atlanta. I can't speak English today. Arizona. Whoops. And the one in Arizona was for, of course, an ESL conference, and it was like a 5-day long conference. We were there for like a week.
Imagine money doing that.
Yeah. And I tell you, man, some of it was really cool, but most of it was common sense to know of these kids.
Yep.
Again, I guess not everything I think is common sense is true common sense, but I feel like don't bastardize someone over their race, ethnicity, or language. Maybe a good idea. I don't know.
Seems like common sense.
Yeah, you think so? So anyway, that's what we ended up in. So we paid Solution Tree $150 million for something that doesn't have any correlation with working.
Yep.
Common sense says don't renew the contract, but for some reason our state legislature is still thinking about renewing the contract. I'm like, look at the stats, look at the money. No,
and I think convention in the store, repeating something, expecting different outcome is the definition.
Yeah, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting
different. And that's what gets. I think that's what frustrates educators so much. Is listen, we've done this for several years now, no results. And we're actually trending backwards in some senses. So what should we do? Move on. Why? No, don't just keep feeding into this beast that is getting you nothing.
Yeah.
And that seems like what we're training to keep doing. And it's just so frustrating.
Well, here's the thing. All right, I'm going to be real with you. And this is what my wife calls a hot take. I'm going to say something that's probably going to get me fired. Not really. But it's something that I find I disagree with heavily across the board. And I think to some extent you are too. I'm not going to throw the name out there, but our school does this program that is all about reaching kids where they are and meeting them at their level and trying to make them feel welcome.
Yep.
Is that a good thing? Yes.
Yeah.
This is where my hot take comes in.
Yeah.
But is it worth the loss of academic achievement and growth? No. I think that's my hot take, because we have pushed the feel-good classroom so much that we are accepting any sorts of late work. We cannot have any barrier to education, even the ones that are self-imposed by the student. We cannot have any ounce of struggle or strife with these kids' life. If they are a special population, they deserve to pass straight through and cannot fail.
And so structure has been sacrificed.
And structure, achievement, and expectations
have just plummeted, tanked.
Gone.
Yeah.
Where do they go? I don't know, but they're not here.
They're not here anymore.
So my hot take is, to heck with making the kid feel good all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to feel like things are not good because you got to get better.
Yep.
And, you know,
that's what improving does. You learn to face those struggles and improve. And a lot of kids just don't have that.
And if we say, okay, well, the world is changing to fit that narrative, to fit that, well, everybody's okay, then we're going to collapse and we're society. Forget the nuclear unit. We won't have people alive because our doctors are going to be killing us. Our physicists are going to be doing things that don't make any sense. Our military is going to collapse. Like, we will not have the stability. And here's the thing, maybe this is, again, to highlight even more, like you mentioned earlier, the haves and the have-nots, because those that will work their tail off without being motivated and those that need someone to sit there and coddle them the whole time, there's going to be a difference in society. Either you're going to have everything or you're going to have nothing.
Yep.
And the problem is those that have the common sense and the drive to do are so few.
Yes.
So few.
Yes.
Dude, I'm not kidding on this one. This is, again, live story, common sense. I read a paper from an AP. That is, for those of you who don't know, AP is college level course. You're receiving college credit from this class. I was sitting and reading papers, subbing for a teacher. And
let me guess how utterly disastrous and horrible it was.
They couldn't spell the word connect.
Yep.
CONCT.
Yep.
Okay. Honey, you're an AP student.
Yep.
And you can't spell connect. Okay. But not only that, just the quality of the papers, dude.
Yeah.
I understand. I was not the smartest kid out there. You were not the smartest kid out there. Your brother was the smartest kid out there.
But by God, yeah. But by golly, did we not proofread our papers over and put the grit and effort into trying to get that paper together?
And wrote something that actually made coherence. It was coherent and made, sense.
Yes.
But that's my side. That's my hot take, is that we are sacrificing academics for relationships. And while I do think that there is some truth to the statement that I don't care what you know until I know that you care.
Yeah.
I do agree with that. But at some point we have to say, you should know by now. It's time to get your act together.
Yeah.
But like you said, that starts in the home. And if you're able to just do whatever you want to at home, you're going to think you can do that anywhere.
There comes a point where you have to just throw them in the water and say, all right, buddy, sink or swim. It's time.
I'm tired of feeling like it is the teacher's job to teach, and we do everything we can. But if a student fails after everything I've already done, I understand there's crappy teachers. Mm-hmm. But after everything you've already done, after everything I've already done, we've had one student this year that was that same thing. Mm-hmm. He just didn't want to pass. He did, but they blamed us.
Yep.
It's like, no.
Yep.
Common sense says the kid doesn't want to do it.
We can open the door for them, but we cannot make them walk through.
I can try to pull you.
And that was a classic example of that.
But that's the problem is, that is no longer the minority in the academic system.
Yeah.
That is becoming the norm.
Yeah. That is what's so defeating, is the fact that your face is so much of that now. And there's not, and there's simply just, as a teacher, nothing you can do about it.
No,
And there's that, we cannot raise their kids.
no.
Like, we can give them all the tools to try to learn and try to forge the path forward for themselves. But if the student's not willing, and if the home is not supportive of it, it's all for a loss. There's nothing we can do.
How many times this year I've heard the phrase, I don't know how to handle my own kid.
Yeah.
I don't know how to handle my child.
Yeah.
Most time in Spanish.
I've heard
It's
parents say that.
It's astounding.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, if you can't do this, how do you expect me to?
Yeah.
I'm with that child an hour and a half a day. That's it.
Yeah.
You get them home, and I understand you have a job. A lot of our parents work, but you have weekends. You have times where
We have way more pull than we do.
you're tired.
Yeah.
We're all tired, right? When you come home, when your wife comes home, are y'all not both tired?
Oh,
Do
exhausted.
you not put time into your son?
Yeah. Here's number one thing. So you talk about a nuclear family and holding that value. One thing from the onset when we were both teachers, and it became very clear after the first few teachers of years of teaching of, okay, here's what we're going to face in raising our kids. And the one thing Mariah and I made a pact with each other, still hold to this day, is I will put everything I got to this job to teaching my kids, but I will not deprive my energy of not having enough to give to my kid.
Yeah.
And so one of my number one goals every day is pour everything I can into these kids and give it all I got, but have enough in the tank left when I get home.
But here's the thing, man. You're a Christian.
Yeah.
We get hard.
Yeah.
And as that expectation is, you're not responsible for the kids you teach. You're responsible for the kid you raise.
Yes.
And so that's where your job as a father, and I'm sure you agree with this, is to take care of your family in the best way you can.
Yes.
And sometimes that means fiscally and financially. Sometimes it means protection. Sometimes it means raising. Sometimes it means washing the dishes.
And that takes priority over my job. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Always.
And that's what I think we as a society have pushed. We need financial status.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But
It's unnecessary.
and this is where you and I are, because I don't have a child yet. We're working on it.
Yeah.
But that's all I think about is getting my finances in better shape.
Yeah.
Like, I work on the house, remodel the house so we can sell it, make more money.
And then
I work on my drone business so I can have extra cash.
you're preparing, nesting and preparing.
Yes. And I'm hoping that doesn't take over when I have a child, where all I care about is having money.
Right.
But I'm very financially minded. Like, that's a lot of what my decisions in life go to, is what's going to better my financial status, with the concept of, I want to do this so that my child, when he or she gets here, has a better life. Because my parents provided me a very, very good life.
Right.
I want to one-up them and provide an even better life for my child.
Yes. Well, isn't that every parent's hope and dream for their kids? That you can be in a better spot, that you can give your kids even better.
Let's be real. It should be.
It should be.
Today's era, I don't know that that's the case.
It's a selfish time. Yeah, it is. It is. But I know for me, that's all right, boy. We can both feel so blessed in that aspect of our families.
Yeah.
Because, like, for me, I was raised in a family, especially on my mom's side, where, like, my grandfather, he was like, listen, I had absolutely nothing. My kids are going to have something, which he has succeeded in.
Yeah.
He has been able to fully close that book and say, I've done it. I fought that good fight.
Yeah.
And now, my mom and dad, they're doing the same, and they've done a good job. They've done a really good job. And now for me and my wife, I'm like, you know what? I just want to do a little bit more. Like, I want to teach my son, but I don't want to just give him everything where he's spoiled brat.
Yeah.
I want to teach him. I want him to know how to think for himself. I want him to know how to fend for himself. But not only that, I want to, in raising him, give him the childhood that he deserves. And so, boy,
Skunk, yeah. Let me get some of my face just turn up.
if you saw the weird facial emotions there, but
You're talking, I was trying to keep it together, and my nose like,
well, it hit me all once.
It's like, boom! Oh, God. Sorry, guys. If you never smelled a skunk, just look at her face. It's not pretty.
Oh, it was a apparent one too. Golly.
Only some baking soda or something.
Mhm.
Anyway, you try to create a better life for your son because of what you were raised with.
Yeah. But all in teaching him common sense,
Right.
And letting him have those core values to be able to make those right and wrong decisions,
Right.
and and that is and this is what really gets me when as teachers, when we meet all these parents that just seems to be a loss. That's the joy of parenting. Like you get so much fulfillment out of that, and watching them learn and grow in that. And to me, sometimes it's so frustrating because I see some parents, and I get all the complications and struggles that some parents face, that not everybody's in the same shoe here, but still, it's for some of them that they seem like, oh, I don't have time for it. That's just that's a chore. It's like, no, that's enjoyment. You raising your child, that's the whole enjoyment of it, is watching them grow in that.
Well, I mean, parenting is a challenge.
It is
Like,
it's hard work.
It's a lot of hard work, but as with anything, if you can find the bright side in it, it's going to be better.
It is fulfilling.
I mean, like, some kids are just rough, and some parents are not strong enough to handle that.
Yeah, it takes a lot of strong will.
I was a rough child. I was for a few years, but my parents were very strict, stubborn, and my dad was also a scary individual. I feared my father more than I feared anybody else on the planet. And you can say, well, that's because he was abusive. No. But when I acted up, I got my butt tore up.
Me too.
And when I acted up, I got stuff taken away from me.
And I'm thankful for every second.
And I needed to know that. You know, it didn't make me an angry child. No, I was angry before I got tore up. Let me put that out there right now. If he didn't tear my butt up, I would have been throwing more fits. But I was more worried about what would happen if I got home, if I acted a fool, than whatever. Like one time, this is a funny story, in high school, 16, 15, 16, 17, I don't know how old I was. And I had a teacher that just, for whatever reason, didn't like me. I think I said something sideways about her one time, and she might have heard it. I don't know. You didn't hear that from me. Honestly, I don't remember why she didn't like me, because I don't think she heard what I said. But that's beside the point. But I remember griping a lot about her class, but just outside of class where she couldn't hear me. But I think she disliked me before that. But I remember one time I was in band, or she was band with me, and we had this, I had to go play taps at a Veterans Day deal or something like that. And we had an opportunity to go, or we could stay and go to class. I went to the band thing. Well, we got done early. So what do you think I did? I didn't go back to class. I went to the band room. She got mad at me about that, I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, not long after that, this teacher tried to accuse me of cheating on a test, because she said that she saw what our homework, I'm sorry, it was homework. It was a homework, if I remember, and it was a big homework assignment. And she tried to accuse me of cheating and say that I changed my answers with a red pen or whatever when we were marked, because we were grading on paper. And I didn't. I swear on the holy Buddha, I did not. But I remember I got pulled into the office, and then my dad got pulled in, and then they talked about it, and then my dad took me home after school. And like I said, I drove home and he met me home. And then he laid into me. I was in tears, because I was like, it was like an interrogation technique with everything but water. Like, he was going after me. And at the end of it, he went up to the school and said, my son did not cheat. You do what you have to. He said, I have put the fear of God in that boy. And and I'll tell you what, even though I did nothing wrong, I knew what he had done. He had my back.
Oh, and that's a good father.
Yeah.
That is, because that's, everyone was admit that at some point in our child, we needed that. They needed that. And, you know, it's the same thing for me on my side. My dad is like, my dad struck the fear of God into me. Like, but for good reason.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember the one time it was an accident. I accidentally turned around and hit my sister in the face.
Oh.
I was mad, so I slung my arm around, and I didn't know she was standing right behind me, and I struck her right in the face. And my dad, he saw it happen. And
look at you, Cal.
And boy, seconds later, my room was off the grave.
I bet it was.
And he laid into me. But you know what? I afterwards, what he did, though, is what every good father does, is he sat me down and he said, I need you to clearly understand this. You are never to lay your hand on a woman.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't care if it's your mom, your sister, or whoever it is, you're never to lay your hand on a woman. He said, I understand that may have been an accident, but you need to be cautious with that. And he said, I'm saying this because I want to protect you as a man and everything and your everything about you in the future. But he said, understand that is an absolute crossable line.
Yeah.
And to this day, that still sticks with me. And I'm so thankful for that moment I had with him, because he made it very clear to me that that is where that line's drawn. You are not to do that.
Yeah.
And who's to say, like, when I got orphaned, I never had that experience. Like, I don't think I ever wanted to hit a woman, but
No, but you're
but
more
still,
aware of what's around
he
you.
made me
Yeah.
more aware of it and more cautious of it,
Yeah.
and I was so thankful for that.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's good parenting.
Well, I don't disagree at all, man. I think that's right up the alley. But I'm just saying that our experiences are not the same that everybody else has.
Yeah.
But like I mentioned earlier with the deal with my mother, and there are thousands, maybe even millions of examples of people doing this, of breaking the system that they were raised in to become something better. And common sense would dictate that if you want to be a better person and you want to live a better life, you will make the changes necessary for you to do so.
Yep.
And I think that's the point of today's episode as we're kind of wrapping up here, is that those in power, those on an individual level, those on a familial level, have to make decisions that are based in common sense, because common sense is going to improve your life, improve your family, and improve the society. And it seems that we have lost that common sense ability because of corporate needs, really negative incentives, or just a poor family structure at home.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't blame anybody for any of those, but just because we don't blame you for it doesn't mean you don't have the consequences, nor do you have the responsibility to fix that problem. You have to make a change if it is needed. And whether you agree or disagree with us, one thing that we can both agree with is common sense makes your life better.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Well, guys, that wraps up this episode. Thank you for coming along on the Common Sense Road Trip. Until next time, remember, keep exploring, stay curious, and never lose your sense of wonder. Safe travels, my friends.